I have seen a lot of bad football in my life as an LSU fan. Straight up. My earliest memories, like where I can actually tell you I remember watching games, being at games, etc. My earliest memories were amid those 6 straight losing seasons from 89 to 94, the end of Archer, the beginning of Curly Holman. I have seen blowouts in Tiger Stadium, 58-3 against Florida back in 1993, 55-17 against Bama in the COVID year. I have seen bad offenses in Tiger Stadium. The Anthony Jennings year in 2014 when LSU was 76th in the country, averaging 27 points per game. I have seen LSU play with their food against lesser opponents and even lose some of those games. 2000 against UAB, 2017 against Troy. There's been a lot of good, more good than bad, thankfully. But I have seen bad. Saturday's win over Western Kentucky might be the worst I have ever seen. And I am not into hyperbole, but that was a lifeless, half-empty crowd that was more focused on Lane Kiffin than the game. It was a weird senior day where Brian Kelly's kids put on a shirt with free BK on there and whatever that went viral. You had fireworks after a touchdown that took a 7-3 lead with 1:32 left in the half. You had a couple of hundred morons in the student section with their shirts off, waving them above their head because apparently that's like a viral trend now, and it became even more noticeable because the stadium was empty in a miserable game. You scored 13 points against a Western Kentucky team that gave up 45 to Toledo and 300 rush yards to the Toledo Rockets. And by the way, you ran for only $126 on 37 carries. You kicked a field goal from the 1-yard line. It is literally the shortest field goal attempt possible. 10 yards for the end zone. You go back 7 yards. From the 1-yard line, that is an 18-yard field goal. You kicked the shortest field goal possible in football, and it was the right call, by the way, because it puts you up 7. You threw it 42 times. 42 passes for 202 yards against Western Kentucky. You were 3 of 16 on third down, 3 of 16 on third down, 1 of 3 on fourth down. In this miserable football game, there were 3 straight possessions, Western Kentucky, LSU, Western Kentucky, where the teams kept going for it on fourth down, and none of them converted either of the 3. You kicked a field goal from the 1-yard line. The 1-yard line. And by the way, you won 13-10, and Western Kentucky ran a trick play where their quarterback became a receiver, and he dropped a touchdown. Which, when you look at that final score now, 13-10, you go, oh, man. If your guy would have caught the touchdown, do you lose that football game? Listen, there's obviously the butterfly effect of everything that would continue on if you can't assume all else is the same. But, man, there was something called the Boom Boom T-shirt cannon. I didn't know this was a thing. I haven't been to a game in 8 years. What a game to break my seal in Tiger Stadium. After 8 years of whiskey and wine being away from Tiger Stadium, I went on Saturday night, and I was treated to what might have been the worst experience, both football on field and game day experience, that you can imagine. Mercifully, there's only one more game in this regular season. But the Tigers won. They got to 7-4. And there were, despite all of that, a few cool moments. The 3 Weeks brothers being on the field all together. Listen, LSU's played football since 1893. When you can say you did something that hasn't been done in 130 years of football, that's pretty cool. For all 3 brothers to be on the field at the same time was awesome. And for Witt, I mean, think about what had to transpire for that to happen. Witt had to come back from his injury just to get on the field for a couple of series. And West had to look at last year and say, you know what? I'll sit in November to preserve my red shirt so I can come back. And then Zach had to graduate early to reclass to make that moment happen. Very selfless of those three guys in an era sort of defined by me, self-involved decisions. So I love that. Bummer with the injuries, man. Braylon Moore, midfoot sprain. Ori Williams, ankle sprain. You're not going to have either of those guys this weekend. Caden Durham, a neck-type head injury. Cost him the second half. Harold Perkins got a hip pointer but returned. Mansour Delane didn't play in the game. He's dealing with an abdominal issue that, as I understand, having a few conversations today, is something he's actually dealt with this entire season, which makes his season even more remarkable because he's basically just been medically managing the pain to get out there every week. So really remarkable that he's had the season he has in spite of this injury. We'll see if he's out there this weekend against Oklahoma, but he's got a future he's thinking of, and I don't blame him for that. But it was a day in Tiger Stadium that I would like to forget, but maybe it's one of those things where we look at that day in Tiger Stadium and say, that is why you're reaching that level, why this program so desperately needs something like hiring Lane Kiffin. Because hiring Lane Kiffin would cure so much of what was wrong with Saturday night. And I'm not just talking about offensively, which is a big part of it. You bring in a brilliant offensive mind who has proven, look, he's got a team with a Division II transfer at quarterback on the precipice of the college football playoff. And he would immediately cure much of what ails you defensively, or offensively, excuse me. But you also need Lane Kiffin because of the juice, the injection of life he would bring into this program, which had so much of it 3 months ago. And when you think about, just 10 weeks ago, after beating Clemson and rising all the way up to number 3 in the country, what the expectation was for this season, you would have never convinced me that it would end the way that it has for this team. But here you are with one game to go and an even of greater consequence decision this weekend, not what's going to happen with LSU and Oklahoma, but what's going to happen with Lane Kiffin. And obviously, a huge part of the season has been talking about the quarterbacks, and a lot of people wanted to see Michael Van Buren. And the point that I made all throughout the season, listen, Garrett Nussmeier certainly was flawed this year. I'm not here to tell you he was great. But the point I've made is he wasn't your only problem. He wasn't even your biggest problem this year, and that's been evident. You would have anticipated Van Buren taking a step against a much lesser opponent. Instead, the opposite happened. It was a miserable day. Van Buren, receivers, runners, Harlem Berry fumble and scoop and score, the offensive line, play calling, all of it. None of it works. And hopefully this weekend, you're going to get your cure-all. If we get the news that everybody is anticipating that LSU will get, with LSU bringing in Lane Kiffin. But we are still about 5 days away from knowing for sure if that's going to happen.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.